Hey gals, welcome to Binge Free Bestie, the podcast where we ditch the diets, break free from binge eating, and build a safe and empowered relationship with our bodies. I'm your host, Nick Carberia, a registered therapist who totally gets it. Binge eating and body image struggles? Yep, I've been there, done that, and I've got the therapy bills to prove it. But here's the good news, bestie. I've recovered and I'm here to help you to do the same. This potty is all about real, evidence-based strategies from my therapy practice, plus down-to-earth, relatable girl talk with me and some of my amazing besties and other experts who have their own stories, tips, and tricks to share with you. So, whether you're tired of the diet cycle, ready to ditch the shame spiral, or just want to feel more confident in your own skin, then you've come to the right place. It's time to get real about food freedom, body acceptance, self-care, and building a life you truly love. Let's get into it, besties. Hey bestie, welcome back to the Binge Free Bestie podcast. Grab your cup of tea, your walking shoes, or whatever you do when we hang out here, because today I want to chat with you about something that it really hit me quite hard, and that is the new Netflix documentary. It's called Fit for TV, the reality of The Biggest Loser. Now, if you grew up in the 2000s like me, then you probably remember this show. It was all about the dramatic weigh-ins, the trainers yelling at the contestants, people collapsing on treadmills, and of course, let's not forget the message. The message of the show was that losing extreme amounts of weight and losing it fast was the ultimate redemption arc. So as a millennial kid watching this, I really soaked all of that in, and I know I internalized the message that thin equaled beautiful, and thin equaled valuable, and it definitely equaled worthy. And although I did not struggle with my weight as a child, as my weight and shape started to change as I moved into womanhood, this rhetoric from programs like Biggest Loser really started whispering in my mind, and it spurred years and years of intense yo-yo dieting, moving my body in ways that I saw on the television show, eating in ways that they were suggesting on this show, and trying to attempt to control my appearance and control my body through restriction and over-exercise. And it's been quite good watching the show, watching the documentary, and looking back at that time in my life as a kid growing up through an anti-diet food freedom lens, especially now that I'm a therapist and especially as a recovered individual. And I can say that it is quite obvious how deeply harmful this program was for me. And it's clear the harm that it caused to the contestants on the show. But it went so much beyond that, didn't it? It was harmful for all of us, for us watching at home. So today what I want to do is I want to unpack what made The Biggest Loser so toxic and how it shaped the way that we saw our bodies as we were growing up, as we were getting older, and why it's still really important to call this kind of stuff out. Even if The Biggest Loser is not on TV anymore and we know that it's toxic, we know that it's harmful, I think it's still really good to talk about it and to call it out, so that we can just reflect on a piece of our story and where we've been and understand how this struggle that we have now with food and eating in our bodies has been shaped and conditioned by a series of influences, one of which may have been something like The Biggest Loser. So first, before we go into our own stories with our bodies, let's first talk about what Fit for TV actually exposes. Because honestly, if you watched The Biggest Loser back in the day, we didn't really get it. Or at least I didn't get it at the time. I was born in 93. So how old was I when it came out? I think it was around 2003, so about 10, I didn't really understand, and I didn't have the critical thinking tools to see it through any other lens than just at face value. And so that face value is that the show made weight loss into entertainment. So every week was a big spectacle, right? It was those dramatic weigh-ins. They had contestants crying on the scale. They had the Biggest Loser, who was celebrated like the ultimate hero. And of course, we saw the behind the scenes on that show, and it was really brutal. So contestants were pushed through really, really punishing workouts, like 6 to 8 hours a day, challenges, really grueling and often embarrassing, humiliating challenges. Like when I was watching the documentary, my jaw was on the floor, and I watched it with my husband, and he is from Colombia, and so it wasn't really on TV there, or at least he didn't watch it. And he was just shocked. He was like, what the heck was this on TV? There was one part where they had contestants crawling around on the floor, building a structure out of bread, and they weren't allowed to use their hands. So they had to pick up the bread with their mouths and try to build this structure. And just how absolutely humiliating and dehumanizing is that? Is actually disgusting. And so they had, 6 to 8 hours a day of movement, challenges, and they were getting bullied and berated by those coaches. And this was all for drama. It was not about health. Okay, so they're saying we're doing this to help these people. No, they didn't. They were doing it for the views. Why would they have people crawling around on the floor with bits of bread in their mouth for their health? No. It's entertainment. And these people were put into a lifestyle of exercising and dieting that they weren't going to be able to sustain once they got off the show, were they? Who has 6 to 8 hours a day to exercise? No one. No one. Unless that's your actual job, unless you're a professional athlete and you're getting paid to do that, most of us have to go to work. So the other interesting thing that the show raised as well is that they were given caffeine pills sometimes, to suppress hunger and to keep them moving when their bodies were just screaming out for rest. So these people were absolutely pushed to the extreme, and Biggest Loser was celebrated. It was the top show. People were desperate to get on the show, to be a part of it. I mean, we had the DVDs at home. So me and my mum would watch the DVDs. We had all of Jillian's workout DVDs and books, her plans. She was in the Women's Health magazine, all of the women's workout exercise, fitness mags. She was in those. She was the cover model, she was a massive celebrity. And so was the other trainer, Bob. Like, it was glorified. It was a golden time for that show. So here's what really hit me. What hit me was the aftermath. Okay, the aftermath. Many contestants on the show regained weight after the cameras stopped rolling. And that weight regain, and I know you guys know this, it wasn't because they were lazy. It's not because they didn't want it anymore. They didn't want it badly enough. It's because their metabolisms had been completely wrecked by this extreme restriction and overexercise. And their bodies had adapted to this by slowing down, by clinging to those calories for survival, because they got so used to doing that 6 to 8 hours a day of exercise and extreme restriction that their body had got used to that and was totally burned out. And of course, science now confirms this. We understand a lot more nowadays that it is not about willpower, it's about biology. And when you starve the body, you go into that semi-starvation mode, your body will fight back. And contestants were not offered any aftercare, though they did ask for it. Nothing was offered. They didn't get anything for their mental health or their physical health. And I can tell you from lived experience that losing a significant amount of weight is an absolute shock to the system. When you go from one shape and size to another in a short period of time, it's like becoming a new person. It's a massive identity shift. The world treats you differently. You feel really off kilter. Even if you feel empowered by the experience, even if it's been a positive experience for you, it still is a huge thing to happen, okay? And when I went through my big weight change, it took me a while to integrate this. And I wish that I had had a therapist when I went through this shift. And I'm sure that the contestants on the show, and they did say in the documentary that they wish they had had that aftercare, because who can assimilate coming back into the real world after being in this silo on the show, having all that time and energy to dedicate to food and exercise and having coaches, and then coming out into the real world. I don't know. I'm absolutely not surprised that almost all of them regained the weight. Those who did gain the weight, we saw what happened to them. They got stuck with that narrative that they had failed. So imagine what it would have been like for them carrying that shame of regaining weight after the whole world saw you and celebrated you for losing it. That is not just weight stigma, that is public humiliation, and that would have been so hard. I don't know how anyone could handle that. And let's talk about the trainers. Let's talk about Gillian. Let's talk about Bob. I mean, I'm not going to go too deep down that rabbit hole, but their role on the show, was it really to support or guide the best intentions for those clients? I don't think so. I mean, look at what Bob's saying. Gillian refused to go on the documentary. Bob came on the documentary, and he himself said, look, yeah, I yelled at people. I yelled in their faces. I insulted them. I bullied them into submission. He humiliated people as a motivational strategy. And at the time, this was applauded as tough love. And even now when he's getting called out on it, he's saying, it was just for the ratings. It was just for the views. It was not tough love. I'm going to call it for what it was. And it was trauma disguised as transformation. Trauma disguised as transformation. That would have been awful. And we saw one woman talking on the documentary about how traumatizing that was for her. And I'm glad that she's feeling empowered now. So the documentary is a good one. I definitely recommend you give it a watch, especially if you were a kid like me who watched it, or a young woman, or just anyone really. If you watched it back in the day, I recommend the documentary. It really shows us what happened behind the weigh-ins, and it helps to validate what so many of us felt in our gut when we did watch it, that something was wrong. And of course, we internalize that as that we were wrong. We know better now, hey? So let's talk about the harm that there was to us, the people who viewed the show. We've touched on the contestants. Now let's move on to us. So if you watched the show, then it touched you in some way, right? If you were a kid, a teen, a young woman during the early 2000s, then like me, you were absorbing the message that smaller equals better, that health equals thinness, and that worthiness and your value as a human is something that can be measured on a scale. And as I said, I personally remember watching it with my mum. We had all of the bits and pieces, the DVDs, the books, you name it, and we really enjoyed it. We did. And mum believed, and I believed, like so many women of this era, that this kind of diet and exercise was what we should be doing, especially if we wanted to be healthy and attractive. And so I, as her daughter, just learned the same that she did, right? And I don't blame my mum one bit. She was just as conditioned as the rest of us. That is generational harm though, isn't it? Because it's not just the contestants. It was the mums, the daughters, the friends, the cousins, the colleagues who all came together and silently absorbed diet culture through this channel, through this program. And then we all acted it out in our own homes, whether that was through skipping meals or doing punishing workouts or feeling guilty because we ate dessert. It's like you could probably hear Jillian's voice in your head. And I bet you it wasn't nice. So yeah, let's have a bit of a moment for an anti-diet reframe now. So let's flip all of this on its head. And I want you to know that if you are on a weight loss journey or a health journey, well, what do we do now? How do we go on a weight loss journey or a health journey in a way that is anti-diet, that is self-compassionate, that is safe, that is grounded and sustainable? Okay, so there's 3 key points here. So the first one is that sustainable, compassionate nourishment heals our bodies and our relationship with food, not restriction, not dieting. Number 2 is that exercise is meant to support your joy and your health. It is not a way to punish yourself or to compensate for what you ate. And number 3 is that your weight does not determine your worth, it does not determine your health, and it does not determine your success in life. We know that diet culture thrives on extremes, and The Biggest Loser was one of the biggest diet culture machines out there. And the truth is that food freedom, or intuitive eating, whichever one you want to call it, and body respect are the only way forward. The documentary also features voices like Aubrey Gordon, who reminds us that the real problem isn't people's bodies. The real problem is a culture that is obsessed with shrinking bodies at all costs. So my reminder for you, bestie, is that you don't need a weigh-in moment to prove your value, and you don't need to earn your food. You are not a TV show transformation. You are a whole human, and you deserve peace with food and joy in your body. And if you want to lose weight, that is absolutely your prerogative, and I support you. But let's go about that journey with self-compassion and without the diet culture bullshit that is telling you that there is no gain without pain. We don't need to do it that way. We can do it different nowadays. So that's my take. That is my take on The Biggest Loser documentary, and honestly, I feel like I've still got a little bit more reflection and unpacking to do just on my own part of this story. And I really encourage you to have a bit of a ponder, maybe grab your journal, do some writing about your experience with the show if it was a part of your story. But know now that you are actively rewriting your story, rewiring your brain. Okay? And we get to say, no more food fear. No more punishing workouts. No more measuring worth in kilos or pounds. If this episode stirred something in you, I want you to know that you're not alone in those feelings. As I said, I had those same stirrings. This is exactly the kind of stuff that we dig into inside my program, The Breakup. We're having these kind of conversations in our besties private community forum. We're talking about how to end the binge restrict cycle, how to heal your relationship with food, and find freedom. So you can check out more details in the show link, or you can just head to my website and my socials. All the details are there. Until next time though, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and give yourself some kindness, and remember, you are not a before and after photo. You are absolutely already enough exactly as you are, and I have got your back. Until next week, take care, look after yourself, and ciao for now.